Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we'll take a look at the new Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Dustin.
Oh, yeah.
C, usually our favorite.
Yes, sir.
922. So this came out here in September of 2022. This one comes in at 124.8 proof for 62.43% ABV. Dustin, I was lucky enough to pick up 3 of these things. 2 for you, 1 for me.
I wish.
Maybe 2 for me, 1 for you. But you've always liked the C batches, as have I. So we're going to get to this new one, man, see what we think. I always hope this time of year I can pick up a C batch here in Ohio. Not always easy.
Nope.
You got to strike fast when you hear the rumors that they're out and available.
It helps that Mike has a team of people who are going out bribing employees of certain stores to call and tell them about every bottle that releases.
It's always good to be nice to people. It's always good to drop off gift cards. Pay dividends. This one was actually lucky. They released this with here recently with Booker's and a couple of other things. So
okay.
People did kind of shied away from this one. As usual, if there were multiple special releases drops here in Ohio, everyone will overlook the Elijah Craig 12-year-old barrel proofs, which again are still 12 years old if I didn't mention that before. And I could not be happier for it because it's one of my favorite bourbons. Dustin, let's get to it.
Can you imagine they're taking Blanton's when they could have this?
Every day I see it. Not every day, but I've seen it 100 times if I haven't seen it 500 times.
My goodness.
We always like to see batches. Obviously, we've gotten to this one before. This one has, from the first time we've tried it, been an absolute delight on the nose.
The nose is just insane, Mike. I mean, that red fruit with chocolate and freaking just slight little bit of peanut butter.
Yeah, I've had this whiskey now a couple times here recently, just to kind of bring it to us here.
Yeah.
And to me, it's almost it sachets into a raspberry that's covered in chocolate. Just an amazing red raspberry chocolate note on the nose.
Little barrel char, just enough to let you know that it's got some age. That this wasn't some rushed bourbon.
Good amount of barrel char, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, not maybe for an Elijah Craig, but in general, this is a lot of oaky barrel char.
Yeah. No, this is more fruity, a little lighter than most of the C's that I've always been a big fan of. This one's definitely coming off more AB-esque.
Sure.
Not that that's a bad thing. It's Elijah Craig barrel proof. If you don't, there's never been a bad one.
No, there are degrees.
Yeah, they go from really good to great.
Yes. And this one on the nose is one of the better ones I can remember.
This is beautiful on the nose. I mean, instantly jumped out as it's unique, it's different, and in a very good way. I've never had something as fruity, red fruit forward. And you're right, it's going to turn into chocolate raspberries here, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, red fruit forward and caramel.
Oh, yeah. And then if you dig deep, charred oak. Man, it's lovely.
So the Circleville Pumpkin Show last night, me and my girl. That's what I'm getting, a lot of fall caramel spice, here on the nose. And that rich caramel is just so dense in this one. And this is in every one of these versions, but this one especially.
Ooh.
What do you pick it up in the palate?
This is our warm-up pour for the day. Just a heads up to everybody. And it's improved since I needed the warm-up, apparently.
Yes.
Man.
You mean to tell me that jumping into 65% alcohol whiskey isn't the best way to start your drinking day?
No, I'm just saying, it takes you a while to level set on whiskey.
Sorry.
All right. Beautiful sweetness. Beautiful rich caramel. It does have that nice light red fruit up front on the finish. You're still getting that. It's starting to get raspberry. Nice oak char. Oh, I love the oak just through and through this thing. Oh, man. Really drinking well right now. Really hitting all of the stuff I want from Elijah Craig. I will say this, Mike. This drink's hotter than the 62 proof, or ABV, and 120-something proof. It's a little sharp there.
Fire. Charcoal fire right now. You're right. I mean, I've had these that are 68%. This is as bitey as any of them been. Dark, burnt chocolate. Dark chocolate. Bitter, burnt. That makes any sense.
Yeah.
But, burnt caramel comes in the end. The chocolate softens up in a few things, but man, it's almost like if you've try to melt chocolate in the microwave and you burn it and just, you wavered it, it was just crusty on the sides. It is such a burnt chocolate note to this, burnt char. It is not the epic experience it was on the nose by far. It's very, very straightforward on the palate. Big ABV, big char, big chocolate.
Big sweetness up front, though, man.
King caramel, I was going to say.
See, I mean, I get this. I get the burn stuff you're talking about on the back end. Up front, man, it's just beautiful sweetness to me.
Yeah, it were
Beautiful
caramel.
sweetness.
Maybe I did overlook that.
Caramel or raspberry caramels or something, man. Yummy.
Yeah, I got raspberry chocolate initially, when we were trying this one.
Yeah.
Let's see if it kind of goes there.
I got more of that on the back end than I did on the front end when we were doing it earlier. But
yeah, you're right. There was some caramel sweetness initially on the palate, but it just got overwhelmed so quickly by an aggressive.
I got a really nice upfront sweetness there for a while before the heat turned on.
When it came, it was.
Now I know why Mike's wearing a freaking tank top here. It's hot.
My bourbon shirts. Okay.
I got a hat you're gonna have to wear next time, Mike. I was
Okay.
actually at the Wild Turkey Distillery and I got a leather, outdoor cowboyish hat.
I'll wear it next time, buddy.
Gonna have to bring it in.
All right. So with water, just breaking this whiskey apart a little bit, get a lot more of those fruits. Red fruits are very, very obvious at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Red raspberry, maybe some apple skin,
Ooh,
caramel. Char's now a component. Strong component still.
maybe even a green apple and caramel kind of going together.
There is a twinge of sour.
I get a hint of kind of like those green apple suckers. I'm the subtlest twinge of that.
Twinge. A vein.
Yeah.
Caramel's getting richer. Sugar's more
This
candy.
just comes off on the nose as just a really incredibly well put together, well-aged bourbon. I mean, you could tell me this is 14, 15 years old, and they just got a crazy barrel, and I'd believe you.
Impressive, like always. I always love these whiskeys.
Now, I see that's on the nose. The palate, I don't think you're thinking 15 years, but the nose for sure.
The palate, you're thinking NAS, under 10 years old. NAS Scotch. A little hot.
It is a little hot. Let's go now with water, though.
Yeah, I will say I like the nose both ways. It's a beautiful nose and neat. I guess I would prefer it neat maybe by a point. But I will say with water, like with anything else, kind of separates it. I do get more of the fruits. But it took that rich caramel away with that burnt char note, which I guess I prefer just because what I expect with this whiskey. Like, this is a whiskey that you drink. This is a serious whiskey.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The water took that char down heavy for me, Mike. It actually really balanced it out, brought it all together. I'm actually going to add a little more water and give it one more pull. Add a lot of water, actually. Because I want to see if I think the underlying whiskey here is actually really good, and it just drinks too hot. We're going to find out.
It does drink hot, especially for the ABV. Like, we've had ones that were 4% higher as far as ABV that did not drink this hot.
I mean, yeah, this drinks. It's a little unpleasant neat on the drinking it. So maybe this is a bottle we need to sit out for 6 months to a year
And come back to it.
And that's the thing is,
A little sharp for a C batch. Usually I think C batch, like best foot forward.
yeah,
And on the nose it is. On the palate, it's straight fire.
yeah. I've heard that master blenders, they initially when they're actually going through the process,
Nose, heavy.
nose is the how they initially build everything. So I'm wondering if this just came out hotter than the nose was telling them.
It's great nose.
Now
It's a
I'm
great
getting-
nose with and without water.
Now I'm getting like walnuts on the nose.
Yes, peanut shell. But I get that a lot with nuts.
The more I added water, the more I'm getting. It started off peanutty for me. Now I added a bunch of water, and it's walnuts.
I feel like I am doing a poor job describing nut flavors in whiskeys lately. I've been going to peanut shell too many times.
I mean, there's still some peanut in here, but it's almost like dusty, like peanut salt.
Yeah, so anytime I see like a nondescript, nuts aren't really overpowering anyway. It's a light note anyway.
Yeah.
So anytime I get like a light nut note that's kind of a dusty note, I instantly think of peanut shells.
Yeah. Well, so when I worked in college, I worked at Texas Roadhouse as a busser. So I'd be the guy, filling up the peanuts in those barrels, and that dust smoke that would come up. That I get a lot of times on like your Jim Beams, especially your Knob Creeks, that kind of
Knob
stuff.
Creek for sure.
You definitely get it occasionally on these Heaven Hill bottles. So Elijah Craig's an example. So you get that, and it's really the peanut salt, dust, just shell kind of thing that just goes crazy. But I'm getting walnut distinctly here on top of that. It's like the wood note is kind of giving me walnut now.
When you say wood note, yeah. I think it's all wood. I think it's char along with the wood note. I mean, being that we focus on scotches most of the time, we are maybe not emphasizing how impressive a 12-year-old bourbon is. That is a good age state. That's a 21-year-old scotch.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point, Mike. Is we don't talk enough about people. We had a comment the other day. Knob Creek 15, is that really top shelf? And it's like,
for a bourbon, it is.
For 15 years, that is
that's an old bourbon, right?
And this is a guy who's not a bourbon guy, so it's not a big deal. I mean, we get it. That's part of the channel is, believe it or not, people actually get educated by us. It's terrifying to think, but it happens occasionally.
Again, yeah. So anytime I look at whiskey, you look at bourbon and scotch differently. For starters, bourbon has to be aged in virgin oak casks.
Yep.
They're getting a ton of wood influence.
Charred virgin oak.
Ton of wood influence. Again, that's why we've often said, bourbons that go over 20 years, most of the time get too oaky. And 15 years old is an old bourbon. 12 years old is an old bourbon. A 12-year-old bourbon that's why I always like to say it. That's like a 21-year-old scotch. Yeah. A 15-year-old bourbon, that's like a 25, 30-year-old scotch. 18-year-old bourbon, you're talking 30-plus-year-old scotch where...
Those are rare.
Rare. You don't know what you're getting right there. Anytime, you get like the Knob Creek 18 or say like this year's King Kentucky 18, I mean, you're talking Kalila 35, Lagavulin 37, once every so often type of experience.
You're getting into like the truly unique unicorns of the bourbon world.
Point is, this is an old bourbon.
Yes. By the way,
old bourbon.
That heavy water has killed all of that burnt char and brought out vanilla. Yeah, there's actually an underlying exceptional bourbon under here. I'm really kind of unraveling what is becoming much more of a traditional classic, not Elijah Craig barrel proof, but an Elijah Craig profile, but like an exceptional one. Like the best store pick you've had kind of thing.
I've been generous with the water here. The more water I add, the more candied and carameled and sweet and fruity it becomes. Mm-hmm. Which is why I love cask strength whiskey.
Yeah.
If I feel it's too hot or too simple, I'll add water and I'll unleash it to some degree.
Yeah.
Perfect example of it. I still prefer the nose neat. Mm-hmm. Every time I've added water, the more water I've added, I've enjoyed the palate more. It's more what I traditionally think bourbon, candied, things of that nature.
Yeah. And
just
the finish is
another
incredible, even with all that water.
Yeah, just once again another great version of a great whiskey that I hunt every time I know one is coming out. When I got the word, they're here and here today.
Yep.
I stood up and said, I'm going to lunch. Bang, bang, 2 stores. You know what I mean? That's how much I think about this whiskey, and this is really no different.
Yeah.
No different whatsoever. All right, so let's get the whiskey score on this
one.
I've
gone first last few times. Your turn here.
87 out of 100. I was going to go 86. I'm pumped with 87 because of how well it handled water in regards to the palate specifically. I wouldn't say this is my favorite one or even in my top 5, but I will remember this one and a whiskey that it's hard to remember. I have a dozen of them buried in my closet, a dozen different vintages. But this one, the nose I'll remember for sure. This is a heavy, heavy char palate neat that can handle water extremely well. 87 out of 100. I thought about an 86. I'm going to go on the high end because the nose neat is that exceptional. Dustin.
Yeah. I mean, there was a moment with this whiskey where I thought 85. Then I kind of came back and said, no, the nose is too good. The upfront sweetness is too good. So then I was an 86. Then I added water. I went to an 87. I added more water. I went, it could be an 88. And then I said, well, if I have to put that much water and work that hard, I'm not giving it an 88. So
right. Yeah.
I'm going to stop at the 87.
Yeah.
But really good Elijah Craig barrel proof. But you're right, this is not in my top 5. In my top 5 for sure.
Maybe not top 10.
I've got 4 right off the top of my head that I'm just instantly saying are like definitively better.
You know what? Shame on me for having a super high expectation for a C batch. Because I tend to think the C's are the best, A's second, B's are usually my least favorite.
B's are more of like your drinking bourbon. A's are hot on the I want to say sweet up front, but not dark sweet. C's are dark and they drink beautifully usually. And that's what I always think.
You know, I've always thought with Elijah Craig's, just to liken it to a Scotch drinking scenario.
Okay.
Of the 3 batches, the A, Bs, and the Cs. Because every year, just if you don't know, every year they come out with an A, B, and a C batch. A comes first, usually first part of the year, January, February. And then the B batch comes out usually in the 5th month of the year.
Yeah.
May. And then usually the C batches come out around September. I will say that I usually liken the A batch to bourbon cask only young Scotch.
Okay.
I liken the B batches to more heavily sherried Scotch. And I like the C batches to 18-year-old Scotch that has a good blend of both.
Okay. Interesting.
Have you ever thought about that?
No.
Okay. Just my thoughts.
I would actually almost the Bs to me are more like the Balvenie Doublewood of the series.
Yeah, they add sherry.
Yeah, but half. Anyway.
Half and half. Okay, anyway, just my thoughts. All right, so actually we're both at 87 on this one. Every time we've agreed here lately exactly on a whiskey score. So there we are. Another interesting Elijah Craig barrel proof. These things here in Columbus are going for $78 plus tax here recently. So, not expensive whiskeys. Definitely worth the money without question.
Yeah.
And when I give an 87, I give an 87 like I'd give a Scotch an 87.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I paid $250 for an 88. So to get an 87 quality whiskey at $80,
This is
Buy.
this is contending with $150 whiskeys
Buy.
all day.
Yeah. To me, this bourbon right here, buy all day for that amount of money.
Yeah. Even with the price increases, Mike, it's still the value bottle for whiskey geeks out there.
This is a $150 bottle all day.
It really is.
All right, those are our thoughts on the whiskey. If you guys had a chance to try this one, let us know what you guys think. Dustin, until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy drinking.
See you then.